Mrs. Yarodavers.
Ave Satanas! Hail Satan! Hail Satan! Hail Satan!
Greetings, heathens. Welcome to Hail Satan. This is the podcast exploring Satanism, culture, and life in general through the eyes of modern Satanists. My name is Joseph Rose. I'm part of an amazing congregation called Satanic Delco, and we welcome members from anywhere in the world. If you want to learn a little more about that, visit satanicdelco.com. Today, I'm going to talk about denominations in Satanism. For some, this is a controversial idea. For me, it is not. If you have a moment, please visit the website at hailsatanpodcast.com. You'll find links to join me on social media, a form to send me an email, which I strongly encourage you to do, and a link to join up with our whole gang over on Patreon. We have a few different tiers to choose from with various benefits, including Greetings from Hell. This is the one-of-a-kind Satanic Postcard of the Month Club. But aside from that, joining us grants you access to our private Facebook group, our lively private Discord server, weekly Zoom gatherings, game nights, movie night, music Zoom, full video episodes of Late Night with Satanic Delco. You'll get stickers in the mail, bonus content, special events, and much more. If you're interested in being part of an active, thriving satanic community, Satanic Delco is where you'll find it. All right. Guys, I've written a little something that relates to outsider Satanism, but also to the larger idea of denominations. My specific example is denominations in Satanism, but it's really no different than denominations in another religion. In part, this is an explanation of how and why I see the denomination of outsider Satanism fitting into the religion of Satanism in the way that I do. As I mentioned in the essay, this isn't an exhaustive list. This isn't a point-by-point comparison between various satanic perspectives. And please stay tuned until the end because I will have a bit to add after the essay. Let's get into it. When we talk about what makes up a religion, there are really two major components to consider. The first is the foundational philosophy, typically found in a central text or a collection of writings like the Bible or the Quran. For Satanism, it's the Satanic Bible. While there is no shortage of mixed opinions on the Satanic Bible among self-identifying Satanists, there's simply no denying its fundamental significance. Historians agree there is no reliably documented case of satanic continuity prior to the founding of the Church of Satan. This is the reference point, the thing that establishes the core ideas and makes something recognizably satanic in the first place. The second component is the living culture that develops around that philosophy. This isn't defined by any single person. Instead, it emerges organically as people interpret, apply, and practice those ideas over time. It's shaped by real experiences, changing contexts, and the priorities of countless individuals. Both pieces are essential, and understanding how they work together is key to understanding how and why denominations form. Denominations aren't rejections of the source material. They're different readings of it, filtered through distinct cultural lenses and lived experiences. Baptists and Catholics both revere the Bible, but they've developed vastly different cultures around how to interpret it and what to emphasize. The same is true within Satanism. The Church of Satan itself states this explicitly on their official website. You don't have to join our organization to consider yourself a Satanist. You only need to recognize yourself in the Satanic Bible and live according to the tenets outlined therein. That's a clear separation between Satanism as a religion and the Church of Satan as an organization. If the defining factor of being a Satanist is recognizing yourself in the Satanic Bible, not membership in any particular group, then multiple denominations can exist based on different interpretations of that shared foundational text and different ideas related to things like ritual and community. It's worth noting that there's a balance to strike here. If so little is changed from the parent culture that the differences are essentially insignificant, there's no need for a separate denomination. You're essentially just practicing the same thing with minor personal variations. On the other hand, if so much is changed that you've abandoned the core principles of the source, you're no longer practicing the same religion at all. You've created something new entirely. Denominations exist in that middle ground where the foundational text remains canonical, but the interpretation, emphasis, and application differ meaningfully enough to warrant distinction. What does it look like when those boundaries are crossed? The Satanic Temple serves as an example of something that has diverged so dramatically from Satanism that calling it a denomination simply wouldn't make sense. The philosophical core of TST is their 7 tenets, which amount to secular humanism and have more in common with Christianity than Satanism. TST uses Satan's name primarily as a tool for bringing attention to their progressive political activism. They've adopted the aesthetic without the substance. Outsider Satanism acknowledges the Satanic Bible as the foundational text of our religion, while preserving the core concepts like rational self-interest, rejection of supernaturalism, and a truly apolitical separation of church and state. We're canonizing an interpretation of previous works and expanding the philosophy in ways that feel natural and suit our experiences and inspirations. Part of our culture is an acknowledgement of and smirking disregard for the fact that Church of Satan culture doesn't accept us. We've never asked for acceptance or acknowledgement, nor will we. We've claimed our space. So where does outsider Satanism actually diverge from Church of Satan culture and LaVey's philosophy? The differences are meaningful refinements that address real contradictions and imbalances without ever straying from the core of what Satanism is. Here are some specific areas where I've identified the need for clarification or development. By no means is this an exhaustive list. Community and individualism. The Church of Satan maintains that there is no satanic community, nor should one ever exist. They use radical individualism as justification, arguing that Satanists are simply too individualistic to form meaningful communities. In reality, Church of Satan followers are most often found repeating these claims from inside online satanic communities that they've willingly joined or started. It's clear that those members do seek out and enjoy satanic community. Part of the embedded culture of the Church of Satan denomination is never allowing the truth to get in the way of defending the stated position of the organization. Conversely, outsider Satanism recognizes this as a false dichotomy. Individualism and community aren't just compatible, they're mutually beneficial. Strong, creative individuals contribute to thriving communities in very meaningful ways, and supportive communities provide resources, perspectives, and opportunities that help individuals grow and flourish. Satanic Delco demonstrates this in practice and has done so for many years. We're a congregation of individuals who maintain our independence and personal sovereignty while also benefiting from shared experiences, collaborative projects, and genuine connection with not only like-minded people, but people with vastly different mindsets and lived experiences. Church of Satan's rejection of community for the sake of individualism creates an unnecessary limitation, and we find no value in that limitation. Balance in practice. One of outsider Satanism's core values is balance, and it's an area where LaVey's philosophy occasionally falls short for some. His fifth satanic statement champions vengeance instead of turning the other cheek, and the Satanic Bible encourages hating enemies with a whole heart and giving blow for blow, scorn for scorn, doom for doom, with compound interest liberally added thereunto. While this rightfully pushes back against unhealthy passivity, it fails to acknowledge any middle ground between complete submission and all-out retaliation. A balanced approach, more practical in lived experience, would acknowledge that sometimes you need to stand up for yourself, sometimes strategic disengagement is wiser and more effective, and sometimes proportional response is appropriate. This is a case where LaVey simply inverted Christian teaching for the edgy sake of it. Similarly, LaVey's social Darwinism ventures into troubling territory. He explicitly rejects the idea that all men are created equal and includes plagiarized passages like, "Cursed are the weak, for they shall inherit the yoke," and "Cursed are the feeble, for they shall be blotted out." There is validity in acknowledging that not everyone has equal capabilities and that pretending otherwise is dishonest and unrealistic. However, LaVey's obsession, by way of Ragnar Redbeard's obsession, with the lowest rungs of the social ladder seem unhealthy and counterproductive. If you remain distracted by those who exist on the lowest levels, you aren't that far above them. Outsider Satanism places the focus on the elevation and celebration of those who create and execute at a high level, rather than worrying about those who don't deserve our attention in the first place. Contradictions between text and culture. Some of the most glaring contradictions exist between what LaVey wrote and how the Church of Satan's followers actually operate out in the world. LaVey's 11 satanic rules of the earth include: number 3, do not give opinions or advice unless you are asked. Number 4, do not tell your troubles to others unless you are sure they want to hear them. And number 8, do not complain about anything to which you need not subject yourself. Yet, Church of Satan followers have developed the embarrassing reputation as the outspoken internet gatekeepers of Satanism, because they relentlessly pursue telling others that they aren't true Satanists, they're pseudo-Satanists, their interpretation is invalid, and so on. Rather than simply moving past content they don't enjoy, they compulsively inject themselves and their unsolicited opinions like a constantly yapping lapdog. This is directly counter to LaVey's own words that they're so eager to defend. Additionally, LaVey's third satanic statement declares Satan represents undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit. Yet, when faced with the reality that LaVey plagiarized large passages from Might is Right without attribution, the Church of Satan published apologetics, performing mental gymnastics to explain it away rather than acknowledging it straightforwardly. That's a textbook example of hypocritical self-deceit, the exact thing LaVey said Satan stood against. In contrast, we recognize that LaVey absolutely plagiarized, but that alone doesn't weaken or invalidate the message he crafted. Again, these clearly aren't rejections of LaVey's work as a whole. They are refinements that come from taking the religion seriously enough to interpret it thoughtfully and honestly. None of the differences are so great as to be outside the boundaries of Satanism, but they're significant enough to warrant an organized culture that is intentionally different than the one established by the Church of Satan's modern leadership and followers. The name for such an organized culture is a denomination. Ours is called outsider Satanism. And that is the end of my little essay. But before I wrap this up, I want to address a detail that some of the more critical listeners or readers among you might pick up on. In past episodes, including my What is Satanism episode, I offer a very broad, top-level definition for Satanism, and that definition is the religious or philosophical veneration of Satan. If you're paying attention and you know that definition, you might be thinking, wait, doesn't that definition include the Satanic Temple? But you just said they don't meet the criteria for being a denomination. You'd be right to catch that. Let me explain. Personally, I do not recognize theistic Satanism or groups like the Satanic Temple to be Satanism. They don't resemble what Satanism is or has ever been. And more importantly, especially in the case of TST and the many copycat groups, they go out of their way to intentionally distance themselves from Satanism, the Satanic Bible, and LaVey's philosophy in general. They openly reject it. And if you spend any time inside TST-centric communities, you'll quickly find that they view it as something they are positioned against or just simply unrelated to. They don't understand magic, and they basically reject everything about Satanism aside from its cool name. But here's the thing. TST has a lot of money, and they started out with a lot of money, and money equals reach. They've successfully injected themselves into the broader culture as Satanism. If you ask a random person, especially someone younger, what Satanism is, there's a good chance they're thinking of TST because of all the headlines, billboards, and the political bullshit. That's just the reality we're living in now. So when I use that broad definition, the veneration of Satan umbrella, I'm begrudgingly accepting that cultural reality. I can't realistically fight that fight. So I acknowledge that it exists under the umbrella term as some sort of cultural Satanism. The Satanic Temple is political Satanism, not religious Satanism. They use the legal framework provided to religions as a tool to pursue political activism. And denominations, by definition, pertain to religious systems. It's just categorically different. So I just wanted to offer an explanation. There's just two different levels of categorization serving two different purposes. One for practical communication in a world where TST exists and has cultural presence, and one for precise philosophical and religious distinctions. By all means, if you disagree or have any feedback on this topic or any other, please send me an email and let me know. If you have a moment, please visit the website at hailsatanpodcast.com. Stay safe out there, and hail Satan.
Schiggen hebben. Die boer wie is er